Hi everyone, Miss Usher here. I'm going to be reading you The Boy Who Sailed the Ocean in an Armchair, chapter 14. It's Mr. Knock, knock. Who's there? Don't know, because Dad is playing musical statues. We've just come home from the park and taken off our coats when Dad hears someone at the front door and stands completely still and doesn't move. Knock, knock. Who's there? Still don't know, because Dad appears to be glued to the floor, even though somebody is repeatedly knocking. Dad, what are you doing? We need to answer the door, I say. I'll do it, shouts Billy, although I think that might be tricky as he's sitting on the toilet at the moment. I hear the rasp of the toilet roll holder as it revolves. No way, hisses Dad, edging towards the front door. He puts on the chain, then opens the front door a teeny bit to see who it is. After a second, he takes the chain off again, opening the door properly. Hello, boys, says Kat breezily as she wafts in, carrying a dish of bubbling molten lava, which she calls lasagna. I've bought you this because I guess you're probably still finding your feet in the kitchen, and a little bit of home-cooked food wouldn't go amiss. Dad pipes up, you must be psychic. And then his tongue literally unfurls across the carpet in the direction of the lasagna dish. Kat laughs and wanders into the kitchen. Yes, if a psychic also happens to notice an awful lot of takeaway cartons in the rubbish. She sets the dish down and tells Dad to be careful because it's fiery enough to serve to Beelzebub himself. When Billy comes out of the toilet, his tongue joins Dad on the floor. Dad says Kat must stay because there's no way we can eat all this lovely grub by ourselves. Grinning, Kat ladles out great dollops of lasagna that squeaks and bubbles as she puts it onto our plates and then carries them to the table. Dad takes a bowl and fills it with cheese and onion crisps, saying he's sorry he has no garlic bread, so this will have to do. Next, Kat suggested Dad put on some music because the flat has gone a bit gloomy again. Hey, I thought you were getting the fun back after our evening of decorating. Come on, let's get this party started, she says, poking Dad playfully in the belly. There's a lot to poke. Dad says he's having a party next Tuesday for real, and will she come? Kat says she'd love to. Within minutes, the music is on and Kat is laughing at Dad's stupid jokes and Billy is doing a little finger dance on the table. When I look round from one face to another, it's like the flat is waking up again, maybe even our family too. Kat grins at me, shoves a big footful of lasagna into her mouth and asks me if I'm enjoying it. Does the wood have trees? Does the ocean have water? Does hot lasagna take the roof off your mouth? I love it, I mumbled, through the boiling cheesy pasta blankets that slither down my throat and nearly take all of my skin with it. After downing a glass of water, I get a bit bold, happy on the atmosphere, like Ibiza nanny after a few drinks. I ask Kat if she's married. She hasn't mentioned a Mr. Cat yet, and since she's about Dad's age, I expect a Mr. Cat somewhere in the background. Dad tries to make cutting hand signals, but Kat ignores him, thinking he's doing a dance move from the 80s music he's put on. Why, are you asking? Kat leans over the table towards me. I smell the cheese and onion on her breath. No, I reply, a bit too quickly. Kat laughs, leans back again, and says it's all right because she thinks I might be a little on the young side for her anyway. And no, she's not married. She's been divorced a few years now. Billy tells Kat that no one would want to marry me. No one would want to marry you, I hiss. Brian would want to marry me. You can't marry a snail, stupid. They'd never make it to the altar because they're so sluggish. Dad tells us to stop bickering in front of the guests and goes to the fridge and finds a few cans of fizzy cola and tells Kat that's all he's got. I know I should have a bottle of wine, but I'm not really organised at the minute. Oh, I'm not sure I should drink anyway, Kat taps her nose with her forefinger. I've got to be able to get back home in one piece, and it's a long way. Everyone laughs at the joke, and Kat picks up a can and pulls the tab and takes a swig. For the next 10 minutes, we talk about everything from my garden design, which when I show her, Kat says is amazing, to the park opposite, to what fish the restaurants are serving in town, to what's going on in Kat's hairdressing salon, mainly colouring. Kat tells us that she set up her own salon with an inheritance she had when she was younger. Then she says she likes to go out and cut elderly people's hair for those who can't make it to the salon. I'll put my tongue back in. I can tell Dad is impressed because he's gone a bit goggle-eyed as he picks up our empty plates and takes them to the sink. Billy jumps down from the table and disappears to our bedroom, coming back a minute or so later with Brian. He starts playing with the snail, piping up that Brian could be on a UK talent show. I say if that's the best we've got to offer, I'm definitely moving to another country. Kat appears across the table as Billy plonks Brian near the salt shaker. I wouldn't do that, says Kat, reaching out. You'll kill him. Snails don't like salt. Billy says that Kat has saved Brian's life and he'll never forget it. A few seconds later, though, he's already forgotten it because Kat has to remind him once again to keep the snail away from the table. Kat seems so nice that I seize my chance and ask her about her mum. When we were decorating the flat, you said your mum likes lilies, I whisper. What's your mum like? There's a huge clatter of dishes behind us, and Kat excuses herself and rises from the table, dropping her square of toilet roll, which was doubling as a napkin. Dad said if it was soft enough for the bum, it would do for lips just fine. Kat says she'll tell me about her mum later because Dad needs help. Dad turns around and gives her a sheepish nod. A few seconds later, there's an awful lot of laughter and rattling of dishes. Kat flicks a load of foam at me, and it sticks to my hair like I've got a bubble wig. Don't ever lose the fun, she laughs. It's the law according to me. What's the law according to your other superhero friends, I ask. Kat looks at me as if I've got two heads, neither of them making any sense. With a name like Catwoman, you'd think she'd know everything about superheroes. 2 hours later, after Kat's gone home and Billy has gone to bed, I settle down with Dad to watch Monsters vs. Man on TV. Every so often I look at him, studying his face. He doesn't look different, but I can't help thinking of all the women he's dating. It's like Dad is a woman magnet. Just as I'm distracted by gazing at Dad's long nostril hair, the phone rings. Dad and his nostrils trot away down the hallway. On the TV, a troll whacks a man on the head with a fish as he tries to get across an assault course. A giggle escapes from my lips. Ding ding! The man makes his way to a punching wall and gets biffed in the guts. What kind of crazy person would do this stuff? I ask myself. Over the sound of the TV, I suddenly hear Dad say Pearl's name. I rise off my bum and peer over the back of the sofa, through the open door, into the hall. I strain my ears and hear Dad pleading with Pearl not to keep ringing him, to leave it. Suddenly, it feels like the previous happiness in the flat has been vacuumed up. After a minute or two, I feel so awkward listening in that I go and hide under the kitchen table, where I find Brian, who clearly left the table 2 hours ago and has only just reached the floor. Beckett! I bang my head on the underside of the table with an almighty thwack. Painfully, I crawl out and tell Dad I was looking for Brian. When I stand up, I hear a horrible crack under my foot. The sort of crack that makes you realise your internal organs can play their own wind instrument. Gingerly, I lift my foot, praying to the gods of all things slimy, and stare at what is underneath. A cheese and onion crisp is stuck to my sock. Brian is still under the table. With much relief, I pick him up and say I'm going to put him back in the shoebox penthouse Billy made for him. Before you go, did you hear anything on my phone call? Dad chews his lip until I can see a tiny split in the skin. What? Did you hear who I was talking to? Asked Dad. The lies tumble from my tongue like a toddler on a gym mat. No. Dad said that's good, and then he changes the subject, saying that he can't wait for the party. He looks at Brian in my hand and says it's time I put him in bed, and went there myself. Dad kisses my head and says, I love you, son. I tell Dad I love him too. What I don't tell him is that I don't understand him. Once I'm inside our bedroom, Brian goes straight back in the shoebox by Billy's bed. Billy has built him a proper little home out of matchsticks, bits of fluff, and a small patch of mud in the corner. You see, Billy, I whisper, placing Brian carefully back in the box. Billy gives a contented little snore. I brought your friend home. I might have fired Brian number 1 into Knuckles' garden, But I made a mistake. You need Brian, I can see that now. Billy's eyelids flicker gently, and then he turns away and lets out a little sigh. I put on my pyjamas and climb into bed, but that's not the last time I see Billy before morning. At 5:43 exactly, Billy comes to me saying he's had another nightmare. Do you want to get into bed with me? I mumble through the sleepy haze of a dream about a giant troll whacking me in the face with a giddy kipper as I run across cracked snail shells in my bare feet. No, replies Billy. It's dark and scary when you close your eyes. But you close your eyes every night, I mumble, throwing back the sheets and climbing out. I tell Billy we'll curl up in the armchair for a while. I'll tell you more of the story, I say. Billy nods and rubs his eyes briskly before following me to the armchair. When the first boy fell in the water, I tell Billy, wiggling my feet, it felt as though he had escaped the storm. It was calm below the ocean. That's when he saw her, a creature so beautiful he could hardly tear his eyes away from her. She had hair like long ribbons and her skin was wrapped in seaweed. And although she didn't open her mouth, she had a voice he heard on the surface. Billy asks for her name. I say I'm not sure, but I'll come up with a name soon. When the second boy followed, hoping to save his brother, he too saw this beautiful creature, I say. Was she a mermaid? Billy takes the swallow cushion and hugs it tightly. I don't know, but she was definitely from another world, and the two boys wanted to stay with her more than anything. They decided they didn't want to go back to the storm because it was hard work trying to get through it, especially when they didn't know what the land would be like when they reached it. No, they'd stay with her until it was calm. She swam with them through sunken galleons and showed them things they'd never seen before, giant starfish that looked like they'd fallen from heaven, small shrines made from shells, and corals that grew like plants from the sand. She showed them fish that sparkled like fireworks, and pufferfish that floated away like balloons, and she drew pictures on the ocean floor. Billy's eyes droop, and he lifts his thumb and pops it into his mouth, snuggling closer into my dinosaur pyjamas. There's a tiny snore and Billy is already asleep. Gently, I try and disentangle myself without disturbing him. Lifting his duvet from the bed, I gently cover his little body. I never told you this, Billy, I whisper. The thing is, it was so hard when Mum died, but we had you. And you're special. My eyes are filling with tears, and I let them go because there's no one to see them spill. Quickly, I tiptoe back to my bed, hardly seeing where I was going. And when I pull back the cover, there's a paper crane there waiting for me. As I pick it up, my tears soak the wing, making it droop a little. And that was chapter 14. Hope you enjoyed it.